Hey folks, David Stewart here. It's time to talk a little bit about perfectionism and why it, like the passive voice, is to be avoided. This video is actually part 7 in my series Keys to Prolific Creation, where I talk about 8 different things that you can do to increase your creative output, whether you're in business or you're in writing or something else. This part 7 here is the only one that I've actually stated in a negative, something not to do. Everything else has been stated in the positive. Have the growth mindset, have the battle mindset. This one is a negative. Avoid perfectionism. Do not be a perfectionist. And I felt that I had to put something in the negative. I had to talk about this because it's a mentality and especially an excuse that I have gotten from an inordinately huge amount of creative individuals. As they say that they're perfectionists. And it's something that I want to tackle head on and demolish and give you some tools, hopefully, to overcome if you are kind of falling into this trap. Now, most people will say that they're a perfectionist kind of in a positive way because there's like a little bit of a positive spin on being a perfectionist. You say, I'm a perfectionist. What is that really? What's the message you're trying to send out? You're trying to send out a message. I really care about quality. Quality is my main concern. It's the thing that I care most about in my work is the quality of what's being produced. However, when I hear somebody say that they're a perfectionist, what I really hear is I never finish anything. I'm incapable of finishing projects because that's really the negative part of it. Most people that I've met who say that they're perfectionists are not good at finishing things. They're not good at completing things on time and under budget. If you're an employer and you have somebody come in that's interviewing with you to hopefully be hired by you, like if I'm hiring like a band member or something or whatever, and they say, I'm a perfectionist, that knocks them way down on the ladder to me because I don't want an employee that's a perfectionist. I want an employee that finishes on time and under budget, is able to respond appropriately to appropriate criticism to improve their performance for the next go around. I don't need somebody that's perfect. You have to spend a bunch of time training an employee anyway. So if you're going to invest that time training that employee, you want there to be a yield. You want there to be a growth so they grow into the value and become an asset to your company, an asset to your group, whatever you're doing. So perfectionism, I want someone with the growth mindset, which is antithetical to perfectionism. So the thing that you have to ask, if you're a perfectionist, if you say, I'm a perfectionist, the question you have to ask yourself is, what am I avoiding? What am I trying to protect when I say I'm a perfectionist and when I act out being a perfectionist? Because those are two sides, right? Now I say when somebody says they're a perfectionist, I think somebody who never finishes projects because that ends up being the outcome, right? Regardless if the intent is I care about quality, I really judge things by their outcomes. And if the outcome is nothing gets produced, there's literally nothing to judge. So perfectionism is really bad in that sense, at least from my perspective. There has to at least be something to judge. So what are you trying to protect? And in most cases, I'm going to say virtually every case I've met of somebody saying that they're a perfectionist, what they're trying to protect themselves from is criticism, especially negative criticism. Nobody likes to be crapped on. Nobody likes to have somebody tell them that they suck at what they're doing. It feels bad, and so it's something that people like to avoid. And a lot of times our actions can be driven sort of by two things. What we seek the things we want, and we avoid the things we don't want. We seek the things we like, and we avoid the things we don't like. I seek hamburgers and I avoid pizza because I don't like pizza, believe it or not. Yeah, fun fact about me. So if you like one thing and you don't like something else, in a lot of cases, that negative thing, depending on how strong your emotional feeling about that is, how strong your fear is, that's going to be a bigger motivator than seeking something you want. I've said that one of the in a sophistry video, the most powerful emotion is fear. If you think about our caveman ancestors, they saw like a lion jump out of the bush in Africa. They're immediately afraid. It's an immediate jump, adrenaline, because that's a deadly threat, right? And so the fear causes them to act immediately, either to attack with their spirit or run away. So fear can have an immediate response, and in a lot of cases, that ancient sort of visceral response that we all have to fear can be a very, very controlling emotion, one that makes us do lots of things, even convince ourselves of things, makes us do lots of actions and say lots of things psychically to avoid dealing with the fear. And so the fear that I encounter most with people who say that they're perfectionists is a fear of negative criticism, a fear that what they come out with will be revealed to be bad as well. So that's the other side of it. It's not just negative criticism, because like we don't want people to say we suck. But if you know that you don't suck, then that doesn't mean anything. I deal with people every single day on my YouTube channel that call me all kinds of names. It's nothing but an ad hominem parade all day, every day. People hate and hate and hate on me. It's an everyday thing. Why doesn't it bug me? It's because I know I'm not those things, right? So if I know I'm not, if somebody comes in and says like, you're retarded this. I'm like, well, I know I'm not retarded, and I know I'm not the thing that you called me, so that doesn't matter. Different people have different vulnerabilities to that, but I've certainly built up an immunity to being called things I'm not. However, if somebody says your book sucks, then it's like, this thing that that's really important to me isn't good. It isn't as good as I wanted it to be. It's not as good as I thought it was. What does that say about me? Does that mean I'm bad? Does that mean I'm a bad writer? Does that mean I'm bad at what I do? So there's all kinds of like psychic problems that happen when you receive negative criticism. And so I'm going to hopefully try to give you some guidelines to kind of overcome perfectionism if you're one of those people that kind of falls into that perfectionist trap, or you find yourself giving the excuse to people that you're a perfectionist to kind of avoid having to complete projects. So here's the first thing that you can do is, first of all, one of the things that you can do is that you can open yourself up to criticism on a limited scale. And this would mean, like, if you're working on a book, start posting updates on a blog. You can keep a blog and post 1,000 words at a time on the book that you're working on. Show it to your friends or anybody else if you have a writing. I'm not a big fan of writing groups, but if you can find one where people will actually read what you've written, most of the time writers are interested in talking about their egos and not actually giving each other appropriate criticism. That's just my experience. So I tend to avoid them. But if you have a good writing group, then put something out there on a blog and let them read it, let people respond to it and tell you what you can improve on. And then the next step for that, once you receive criticism, is you have to do the appropriate framing. Framing is a really, really important thing for avoiding a lot of this sort of psychic cascade that happens when you receive negative criticism about something you really care about, your creative work. So the psychic cascade is, my book sucks, I suck at writing, who am I if I suck at the thing that I care about? Am I worthless? Should I give up and take up gardening? Right? Like, you have this cascade of self-doubt and self-negativity, and you have to cut that cycle short by framing it, right? And so framing it means putting everything in the correct context so you understand the criticism. So let me give you, if I can, a good example. So if you put out that blog post, that 1,000-word blog post, and somebody says, you use this word a lot. Use this word incredulously a lot. If you're like Robert Jordan, you said incredulously a whole bunch of times, and you're like, oh no, do I suck at writing? I must suck at writing. I should take up gardening. No, but it is like, okay, in this 1,000 words, I used a particular word enough times that somebody else noticed. Maybe I should use that word less, or maybe in the future I can be more aware of certain words that I tend to use often. If I'm using the word incredulously often, as Nynaeve tugs her braiding incredulously, maybe I should be more aware of that and avoid it, right? And so it's like, in those 1,000 words, I didn't put my best effort. Maybe you get a one that's like, oh man, the dialogue here is so cheesy and pointless. It's like, does that mean that you suck at writing? Well, it means that you wrote 1,000 words that somebody else thought the dialogue was pointless for. It could be that they didn't have all the context necessary to understand that dialogue. It could be that you thought the dialogue was saying more, and that you thought it was communicating more than it actually communicated to an actual reader. And that's all good information. That means in that 1,000-word chunk, each time you come up with 1,000 words, it's like an iteration. If you can actually get feedback on it, you can keep doing it. And if you stop and you read your 1,000 words through each time, you can hopefully see an improvement with what you're doing. So that's a really good way. And that has the added benefit if you're doing these 1,000-word updates to complete a story or complete a book, then you're also moving towards your goals. And even though you're only doing a little piece at a time, you're avoiding perfectionism, the perfectionism that will stop you from releasing the book at the end. Because by the time you get to the last update, you've already released the book. and there's no going back. It is as it is, and then you can do whatever revisions you need to later to come out with another version. But you've at least released it, and it exists out there, and people can see it, and so you can't avoid the criticism. So there's a great exercise if you're a writer to do that. If you're a musician, it's a little harder, but the best thing that you can do as a musician is get out there and perform and risk performances. You have to risk falling on your face. I fell on my face. I mean, like, I had a really bad performance once as an undergraduate, and it was probably the best growing experience of my life. And it was in front of, like, Angel Romero. It was like in an Angel Romero masterclass, and in front of, like, hundreds of people. My nerves got the better of me, and it's like I couldn't play. You know, I couldn't play this song that I'd come up, or this piece that I had been working on. And I went back and I evaluated how bad that was, and I thought about all the ways that I could avoid that negativity in the future, because what we do is tending to avoid things, right? Like, how can I avoid that in the future? Well, the easy way to avoid that kind of embarrassment is to never perform. But I'm like, no, I do want to perform. So how can I perform and avoid that? Well, better preparation, better mindset, in control of my nerves, lots of different things to control what I'm doing to make sure that I'm able to, the next go around, avoid the negativity of that bad performance, right? So you just got to get out there and do it, and risk people not liking what you're doing. That's just the best way that it can be done. The other thing is, like, you kind of may need to think about working on yourself a little bit if you're trying to protect yourself psychically a whole bunch. You may need to think about, like, working on yourself to improve, you know, your own mentality and your own judgment of self, so that you can actually put something out there for people. And the thing is, perfectionism is one of the things that will shortcut your growth the most as a creative individual. If you're never completing the project, you're actually missing out on all the most important lessons. A lot of times people are working on a book and they're working on it for years to try to get all the prose just right, try to get all the words just right, try to get everything just right as they understand it at that point, never releasing it. Whereas if they released the book, they would understand through the feedback and through the process of revision and actually completing the book, the things that go into actually making a book good, which is not the sort of word-by-word prose, but the way you approach structure. You can't understand structure till you really complete a book and can see how structure works in your own work, in your own writing. You can't really understand the release process of books and marketing books and understanding log lines and descriptions and cover art unless you complete a book and learn all those lessons, because that's a big part of success too, is knowing how to market your book, how to write agent queries and that sort of stuff. You're missing all those lessons by avoiding the completion of the project. And in so doing, you also never have a realistic idea of how the project is. You feel like it's not perfect to you, but you haven't gotten that outside perspective to tell you what about it isn't perfect and what works and what doesn't work. Because sometimes you may be surprised about what people like or don't like about your work. They may love a scene that you think is pointless. They may love a character that you don't particularly like, and you have to frame it and think about why they like that. And in my case, if I get a negative review on something, I don't start thinking like, well, I should give this up. I have to think about, okay, what does this review mean? So, you know, I got a 2-star review from somebody who read like the first page of the book and didn't like it. Well, that's a review from somebody who didn't read my book. Do I need to take that seriously? I don't need to take it that seriously, but I have to think about why that person didn't like the first page. And I'm thinking of this review, it boiled down to they didn't think red hair was light hair. They didn't like the description of light hair as red hair, which to me, red hair is light hair. Like, it's lighter than brown. It's, you know, light hair to me. Like, most of the people in my family have red hair. To me, that's light hair. I have dark hair, right? And so most of the people I meet that have red hair, it's very bright and light. So to me, I'm like, is that description wrong? It's like, well, to that person, it was wrong. And it was wrong enough that they didn't want to take any more chances on what I was writing. But is that something I really need to change? Probably not. Could I, in the next book, make an even more interesting beginning? I could. You know, I have to think about, is this beginning working the way I want for everybody or for the most number of people? It's not going to work for everybody. Maybe this is a guy that beginning didn't work on. Maybe for the next book, I think about trying a different way of beginning the story and see how that hooks people. So, this sort of critical cycle, it's really important. I got a 1-star review from someone who I know didn't read the book. I'm like, that review says nothing about the book. And I click on it, and it's like he leaves like 10 1-star reviews on things a day. So if that's somebody who didn't read the book, I don't need to take that remotely seriously at all. I don't even have to consider that criticism. That's just a random, insane person. And so by framing the criticism, I'm able to either take it in and know what could possibly be improved, or I'm able to discard it and avoid it, like kind of creating that psychic cascade that'll give you in sort of like a negative mindset. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. You guys have a great day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My album, Zool, David V. Stewart's Zool, Memories Adrift, will be out October 31st. That's Halloween. All the pre-order stuff will be down below. You can check out my books at dvspress.com and everything I do at davidvstewart.com. You can check out my music at zulonline.com, zulonline.com. And anything that you consume, I'll be particularly happy about. Make sure you jump on my mailing list, dvspress.com/list, and I do have a lot of deals on books, and a lot of cases free books, free access to a lot of my books, and usually access to whatever my next book is going to be. I'll give you early access to that. If you're on that list, I'll give it to you for free and early, just for trusting me with your email address. And I really don't spam people on that address. It's like 1 email a month, and usually to do with, here's a deal. So thank you, and I will see you guys next time. Good luck on your journey.